a young mother goes back to the location of some childhood trauma, and she and her family encounter a gang of crazed doppelgangers hungry for their lives. In Jordan Peele's sophomoric effort, Us.
Mm-hmm.
That was the shtick that they gave us front and center when we saw the trailers to this movie. They weren't hiding what was going on in terms of what type of villain we were facing in this little flick. And like I said, this was Jordan Peele's sophomore effort, which usually the sophomore slump is a make it or break it moment, you know, especially when you're under the magnifying lens. And boy, howdy, was he, for a variety of reasons, you know, be it that he brought a form of very socially aware horror to the forefront. One, two, he's a black auteur.
Yep.
You know, that alone in horror is rare as fuck. Usually when you get black horror movies, they're usually made by white guys named Wes Craven. Woo!
That is weird.
Our boy.
With Ving.
With Ving hanging from beams and then rotting with a corpse that doesn't even look like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So there was plenty of reasons why people were looking out for this movie, and I gotta say that sadly, a lot of people were looking out for this movie in the wrong way.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted Jordan Peele to fail. I don't know what it is about people, man. I know there's probably a subsection of them that was some racial thing. We're just gonna ignore that thing because that sucks, and those people suck, and they don't deserve to even be brought into the conversation.
Yeah.
But what about all the other people? Is there just like a contrarian wave of people?
Yeah.
Is
It's
there
like when it's like the same thing that happened with Hereditary.
Yeah.
Everybody, you know, critically it was liked, and so we gotta hate it.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. The point is, people wanted him to fail, and I think it's pretty safe to say he did not. Now, some people say Us is a confusing jumble of nothingness, and to them I say, shut the fuck up. It's pretty easy to know what's going on if you just sit there and think a little bit about it, but that's a whole nother thing we're going to talk about potentially. I don't know, man. There's enough people that like this movie. There's the money showed up. There was butts and seats. So critically, it was beloved. So he definitely went over that hill. But the one thing he didn't lose is the buzz of controversy around him. People still want him to fail.
Yeah.
And that's pretty crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to talk about this. To me, it's as simple as this. Jordan Peele is an original fucking voice in horror. And that's what horror needs, man. People like him and Ari Aster, who did Hereditary and Midsommar. We need people like that in the genre. People that'll bring some refreshing thing. Just as much as we need the old stuff, we need new, fresh, exciting voices. And this is that type of movie, you know. The villain is exciting. It's different. It's something we've not seen before. So that on that level alone, this movie deserves some recognition. But we're going to talk about the other stuff. Does it deserve recognition for that or not? Now, what did you think, man? I know when we finished watching this movie, there was like a moment for you. I don't know how you want to elucidate on that. Hit me with it.
So I was kind of confused when this movie ended, but it was one of those kind of like moments where I know what I saw was good.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't clear on certain things.
Right.
And if you're not clear on certain things, then it does kind of not ruin, but sully the experience a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't get the overarching theme, then it can seem a little random.
Yeah.
That being said, it was, like I said, it was one of those things where, like, I knew it was a good movie, and I liked what I was seeing. I was just a little lost.
And that seems to be a consensus for a lot of people that are in, like, a gray zone about it or downright negative. I'm not saying that they don't get it, although talking to some people and reading some people's responses, some of them didn't. And I know some people would say that, oh, no, we got it. You're just saying that. And, you know, the mere fact that you're getting angry about somebody telling you, no, dude, look at it this way. This is what you missed. That tells me something. Why get angry? You know, sometimes we don't get a movie the first go around. Sometimes there's substance there we don't understand. And that was used kind of as a as a soapbox or shit, a launching pad for people to go, there's a bunch of plot holes in this movie. And I had a discussion with you afterwards in an attempt to kind of, and shine light on some of the parts that you didn't quite get. And I just kind of went off on why some of the plot holes that people point out aren't plot holes. You just kind of have to sit there and go, look, this is how this works and why this works. Now, I don't want to get too much into the details of the movie itself as in the plot, because that's part of the enjoyment of the movie. Even if you don't grasp 100% what's going on, part of the enjoyment is finding out what's going on to some degree, and why these events are happening, who are these doppelgangers and why are they there. Part of the excitement of that is that refreshing experience of seeing some new type of villain in that vein and why they're there. Now, the reason you were kind of like taken off your guard by this movie was not the reason that a lot of people out there were. The major reason, I should say, is because you didn't quite get what they were insinuating these things were. Now, there's a line in the movie that tells you exactly what they are, but it's kind of just said in passing.
Yeah.
And it's never a concrete thing. And that's very intentional, of course, because ultimately this is a movie, and this is my first big pro about this movie. I think Peele really adjusted and refined his touch to commentary in this movie. Yes, this is a movie with a message, just like Get Out was. However, in Get Out, the message was up front and center. It was about the message. It just happened to be in the packaging of a good story. This one is a story that has a message, and that message is a theme. It's a theme in the background about class warfare and the gulf of difference between the lower class and the upper class. And how if we're allowed, if the upper class or the upper classes, or the privileged kind, I should say, allow people to just come into their inner circle, those people could be just like them. But that's not the case. And instead we create our own villains. That theme explains the events in the movie, and vice versa. If you don't grasp that theme, you lose about 85% of what's going on, or why it's happening. So I love that theme. That's a great theme. And I love that it's not up front and center as it was, as the theme of Get Out was. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Get Out. I'm just saying I love that he refined that touch a little bit and made it more of a backdrop character more than, this thing that's blaring in your face. That's cool, man. I really enjoyed that particular thing about the movie. Another thing that I love is that Peele just has an eye for framing certain things a way that's menacing, man. There's something genuinely eerie about the idea alone of somebody that looks exactly like you, but with a sinister underlining to their behavior and reasoning. And then to show it in a way that's just, that that if that happened to you in real life, you'd be like, this is unnerving.
It could have easily been ridiculous, visually, but it works.
Yeah.
And then it's like you said, it frames things in a way that makes it look interesting and that builds an atmosphere. It's not just like, oh, look at these two people facing each other and they look the same.
There's definitely an artistic look to the way he frames shots and the way he presents stuff. There's a lot of symbolism in this movie. There's a lot of visual foreshadowing in this movie. I know some people were like, that ending came out of nowhere. No, it did not. If you were watching the movie, that ending is told to you a lot of times throughout the movie.
There's literally several times where they play a flashback where they go, that's not, whatever. I don't want to ruin too much, but...
I know. Again, this is a movie where we don't... I know we usually go into just talking about the movie and fuck spoilers, but this is really a movie that you got to experience in a certain way. It is an experience of a movie. Yeah, man, there is a lot that foreshadows the ending of the movie, which some people call the twist ending. And it is pseudo-twisty in a regard. But, again, the reason that ending is there ties into the thematics of the movie. And, that's why it works.
It's one of those endings that is... If you're seeing the movie and you don't fully understand it, your knee-jerk reaction is going to be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense.
Yes, exactly. And there's plenty of reason, even if you do grasp the majority of the movie, I can't honestly say that I grasped 100% of the movie as I watched it through. It's literally a movie where I sat and I watched it and I was like, this is great. And when it was done, I sat there for a few minutes and I had to kind of take that ending and then see how it shines light on every other moment, even though I knew those other moments and how it led to that ending. It's just literally a moment where you go, okay, let me reflect upon this.
Yeah, what does it mean? Yeah.
Yeah, what does this mean in terms of the character? And why were these characters behaving this way? What was it? It makes you think about the characters and the situations and the story. And again, I stress this with my first pro. It makes you think about the characters and the story versus the theme, which you get. If you get the theme, you get it. And that's awesome. It's not so much stressing this theme, it's stressing the story and the characters, which I love. Now, some people just didn't get the theme, which, if you didn't get the theme, you're not going to get this movie. And then I understand why you don't like it, because you didn't get that theme. They're mutually important to each other. But yeah, I love that this is a movie where I had to mull on it a little and go, that's how, this is what this means. I love that. And so that's cool as well. The score, once again, like Get Out, is very unique. Haunting at times. And just something
that's pretty minimal too.
Yeah, very minimalistic, and it stands out. It just stands out as its own thing, which is again rare in a lot of movies. It stands out as very, very unique. Love it. I love the iconic nature of the villains here, called the Tethered. There's just something about the way they look and the concept behind them that is immediately iconic. You know. Say what you will about the movie and how you think about it, you can't argue that this type of villain, one, the concept, two, the look, simple and to the point, and yet carrying a message with it, again, tied into the story and theme. There's just something about that that's visually impacting and memorable. Cool, man. Cool. It's hard to do that. It's not easy to create a Michael Myers or a Freddy Krueger, somebody that just sticks visually as well as conceptually in your mind, and this movie did that. It's gonna stick with you, even if you don't like it. It's gonna stick with you. The visual and the concept at its simplest level and at its most complex level, it's gonna stick with you. You can't buy that type of stuff. You either got the mind to make that, or you don't. You got the creativity to make it, or you don't. And Peele has that, and I gotta appreciate that. That's awesome. Tell me something, man. Positive or negative, it don't matter to me.
I do think that it's not a negative, but it's a thing that if you're gonna be one of those dickhead people that are just gonna be looking for something to complain for, then this is not your movie.
Yeah.
Because though you can just kind of ignore the theme, if you know it's there.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my thing, is that I didn't understand fully what it was trying to say, so it was just kind of frustrating. You know what I mean?
And you know what? Let me elaborate on that. Yes, knowing what Peele did with the first one, and just knowing his style, especially if, I mean, again, this is given that he's made one film.
Yeah.
You know, directed one film in the
classic Frankenstein.
But given his approach to that film and how very clearly it had a social message in it, you inherently understand going into this movie that possibility is most likely going to be there. And yes, it is. There's a message here. So that's going to hinder the viewing experience for a lot of people, because they're going to go in knowing that they have to look out for something.
Yeah.
So they go in potentially burdened with that. Even when I started watching it, I was like hyper aware. Does this mean something?
Yeah, exactly.
Does that mean something? Yeah. But then about like 10 minutes into the movie, I said, no, I got to stop thinking that way, because then I'm going to burden my own viewing experience.
Yeah.
So I had to shut that down and just watch the movie.
Especially because the movie just takes its time to kind of... And then even though I want to say to explain things, but it never fully even explains anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, if you're going in with a certain mind, like you said, mindset,
you're going to trip yourself up.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So, yeah, I do recommend, if you haven't seen this movie, to go in and just expect a movie, you know? And if you just watch it as you would, without the burden of, like, there's something here and I got to find it out.
Yeah.
Just Trust me. Just go in and watch it. And that message, if the theme is there, and it is, it'll come to you. And if it doesn't, you might just enjoy it as a viewing experience because it is built with a story at the forefront. Now, that being said, like you said, yes, the core root explanation of these beings is in the movie. It's just not. It's presented kind of like through the eyes of the main villain, basically. And in her eyes, she's kind of presenting it as a fable, as a fairy tale. You get like her interpretation of the thing.
You get like the telephone version, you know?
Exactly, the telephone version of what she believes is going on here. And you know, in movies, we inherently understand that when a character says that, that's most likely the explanation. The thing is, because she's telling it in this particular way, strict details that are usually left to exposition in movies are not the name of the game. So it's a vagary, but a clear vagary. It's a movie that allows you to connect the dots if you let it take you along with it. Again, like, I know you viewed it with that burden of like, I have to be on hyper alert. That might impede you from connecting those dots, and that might in turn impede you from enjoying the whole of the movie. So that's just something to keep in your mind there. You know, I suggest just go in and just watch it as a movie. Trust me, what will come in due time. I got to put out a special kudo to Lupita Nyong'o, who is, of course, at the forefront of all the actors here. She is the matriarch of the family that is afflicted by these beings. Mm-hmm. And conversely, she plays her own doppelganger, as does everybody. And everybody does a great job. Don't get me wrong. Everybody does a great job playing themselves and their mirror versions. But Lupita Nyong'o clearly is the linchpin of this movie. Both her characters are. Obviously, there she is the way you understand the movie, and she is at the core of it. She is the reason it's happening in a lot of ways. So she plays dual roles, but she is especially noteworthy as Red, your de facto villain. There's just something about it that really sticks out, you know, and ultimately as things develop, there's a multi-layered character, and there's just it's almost like they created a language for these characters, even though they don't speak, with the exception of her. That's there to just add to the kind of weird levels to them, on top of what their purpose is. And she just carries it out very well as kind of like the almost willing yet unwilling leader of this family and movement. Yeah. And you know, I know I've read some criticisms from people that were like, it's just laughable the way she presents it. If you're laughing at that, I have nothing to say to you. You're just kind of a dick, I guess. Like, there's nothing to laugh at here, you know? There's a reason she speaks the way she speaks. It's told to you in the movie, but there's even even a subtextual reason to the way she speaks. If you really think about it, she speaks kind of like, as we speak, we exhale. The way she speaks, she inhales. It's a reverse. There's a lot of little clever subtextual reasons to the way she's doing things, on top of the real reason she's doing it that way. There was just so much to chew on there with her character, and ultimately with her real world character, her normal world character, Adelaide. I really love what she did here. She's a fantastic actress to begin with, but this was one of those roles that I was like, that's an awesome role. That's a very memorable role, especially in the genre. There's
also something about she has like a very unique look.
Yes.
I was trying to find a way to say this without sounding offensive, but she just looks unique as a person.
Yeah. So she's gorgeous to begin with. Yeah. But it's that kind of like, it sticks out type of look. You know, there's nobody that looks like her that you can think of. Just like an Angelina Jolie, she has a very unique look. Yeah. There's nobody that looks like that. Whereas somebody more pedestrian, you could be like, oh, there's people that have these qualities in their face that I could see somewhere else. There's just something visually about her that sticks out. And then adding to the kind of like iconography of the film, it just adds to that on a visual level.
I think her and the little girl, and the female neighbor were really good at that kind of like dual role because they were so different, you know. I mean, yeah, the little kid, the little boy too, obviously, but he was very different. They did a very interesting job of just playing the roles so differently, and you kind of buy what they're selling. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and it's an interesting approach to acting because they have to play, not necessarily a negative version of themselves, but kind of like a perverted version. And I don't mean perverted in the sexual way. I mean like twisted and corrupted version of themselves. And I think here, and again, this is treading slightly in the spoilery territory, but not. I'm not going to say anything explicitly, but I think one of the things that I love the most about those portrayals is that ultimately these villains turn sympathetic in their villainy. And a sympathetic villain is kind of one of the most interesting type of villains you can have. You know, if you have a reason to kind of side with the villain, that's usually because it's attacking something that you can relate to and or that you can understand and empathize with. And these villains kind of turn out to be empathetic, sympathetic villains.
Yeah. I do want to say that a lot of times when that happens, it takes the
impact away?
Yeah, the scare factor away. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that happens in this.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It actually just kind of makes things creepier.
It does.
Especially with, the way the last shot and all that stuff. It just kind of makes everything a little more eerie feeling.
And again, without ruining anything, what he's kind of referring to there with that last line is this movie is kind of pseudo-apocalyptic movie in a sense. And that's awesome because, first of all, it's not an outright apocalyptic movie in the sense of a global scale apocalypse, or cataclysm. Yeah. But there is a massive, let's call it conspiracy of sorts going on here. Yeah. And the implications of that alone add another layer of eeriness to it.
There's a line in there where she kind of says that she just wants to send a message. Mm-hmm. And it's at the end. That's what you get. There's no way you can ignore that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very eerie feeling ending, and just kind of making them that way does not take the freakiness away like it most times does.
There's a couple of lines in this movie that really make an impact for me personally. That's one of them. That idea that she just wants to send a message, and again in relation to her character, when you see it. Or if you have seen it, you understand why that's important. Mm-hmm. The other line is when she's asked, who are you? And she says, we're Americans. The impact of that line and how it ties into the themes of the movie, that's the line that's like the fulcrum of the movie. That if you didn't get the theme up to that point, which is very possible because the movie's presented pretty straightforward up to that point, at that point, that's the turning point. That's when you go, okay, here where the thematic kicks in for sure. And those two lines have impact on a variety of levels, be it eerie and it giving you a sense of the unsettling, a sense of something deeper going on. And of course, on a story basis, those two lines really stuck out to me, and coincidentally from the same person. But anyway, anything you want to
add? No, I do think that this is definitely not a movie you just see once.
Yeah, this is it practically begs to be rewatched.
Yeah, especially if you go in with, like I did, with that knowledge that there's going to be something, so you're just kind of like in the lookout for it. So yeah, it is definitely a movie you see again. You have to see it more than once, and if you think it doesn't make sense and that it has like all these plot holes like a lot of people do, then you miss something, and you just have to either freaking look it up or something.
For those people that I'm gonna chalk it up to frustration for some people.
Yeah,
that are now like gaining some sort of validation from other people going, yeah, this movie sucks because of these things. Now you might still think it sucks if upon rewatching, but I urge you to rewatch it because a lot of stuff will make sense to you. You know, if it didn't the first time. To me, like I said, this is a movie that I would say like 95% of it, I was like, yeah, I just had to really think about a few specific details at the end once it was finished. And that didn't take me long. I was just like, I was like, boom, this is great. So when I watched it with you, that was the second time I'd seen it. And again, with movies like this that depend on a certain angle to work, there's always that danger that upon rewatching, it's not going to work again.
Yeah.
And thankfully, that was not the case. It was just as enjoyable, if not a richer experience for it. Again, because I already knew what was going on. So upon rewatching it, all the better for it, you know. So yeah, thankfully it didn't. Which there was always a fear that I'll be like, oh man, now it just doesn't work anymore. A la Sixth Sense, great movie, but rewatchability probably at 0 because you know it depends too much on one thing.
Yeah.
This is not the case with that. Thankfully, this is very rewatchable because again, the story is at the forefront of this thing. Just a good horror story. And it just happens to be all locked. The glue of it is the theme. So yeah, great action in this, guys. Very minimal use of effects, but there's no big need for them. Lots of little clues and little things to chew on. You know, little fucking cool nuggets for you to go research afterwards. Like you went
full freaking horror host.
Yeah. There's just cool stuff like that. You know, like there's this guy standing outside with the Jeremiah 11:11 sign. You know, go and read that. It you know, adds a creepy level to it. You know, ties into what Red later says about her thinking that God put her on this path. You know, which, by the way, for all those people going, how, that's another clue to what the hell was going on. And, you know, but anyway, whatever. The point is, this movie is a blast in a lot of ways. I do fear that, like you say, it was burdened by certain things, but that's more about the crowd expectation than anything. Yeah. I can't say I really have any negatives to it. There was a lot of fucking shit to enjoy in this. I did not ever think I hate this or any such thought to it. I'm sure there is some negative in there. No, there's no perfect movie, but at this present moment, I'm just excited that there's something refreshing and new and cool like this out there, man, in the horror genre.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So anyway, I'm going to give this movie a score of 9.5. I fucking love this. I almost love it. I'm going to say I love it more than Get Out, although I feel Get Out is more accessible to the general audience. And the message, I think, is more prescient and relevant to current times in Get Out, though that's not to say that the message here is not irrelevant. The message here is as old as the message in Get Out. It just covers more people. Some people were like, is he just going to make another racial message movie? And for some reason they still think that that's the case here. He actually managed to expand that beyond just one specific crowd of people. Here he included an entire class of people. So it's relevant to a lot more people. So yeah, man, it's timely because it's a thing that's happened throughout history, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah.
Get Out was timely because it's a thing that's happening right fucking now, and it's very up front and center in the news and shit like that. So I feel that this movie just hits a lot of home runs, man. So that's why I got to give it that 9.5, baby. Jordan Peele, bring on Candyman next, although he's just producing that. But bring it on. And also, you write weird Twilight Zone episodes. But anyway, the point is, I love me some Peele, and I want to peel his orange. I don't know what that means. But give me your final score and thoughts, or final thoughts and score.
I don't understand why the horror community has turned on him so much. I should say the morons in the horror community have turned on him so much. You know, there's that whole he's ripping off Twilight Zone episodes thing. Well, now he's hosting Twilight Zone, so
I'm just going to tell you this. For the people that throw that accusation out, lob that accusation out, he's ripping off Twilight Zone episodes. Yeah, so have thousands of other people.
Yeah.
Stephen King, the biggest name in horror, very openly admits to being like influenced by Richard Matheson, which wrote some of the greatest Twilight Zone episodes. Twilight Zone, yes, is a font of inspiration to a lot of fucking people in the genre. In fact, I dare say that if you're in the genre and Twilight Zone is not an important building block to your fucking creativity, then you fucking probably suck. So that's a stupid fucking accusation. But anyway,
it's very clearly people just don't want him to be successful in this genre for some reason, whether it be because he comes from comedy, or because he's black, or because they just don't understand what he's trying to say and just think it's a race thing, all the time. You know, I don't understand what it is. I do think this was a better movie than Get Out because I was thoroughly enjoying it. I was just something was missing, and when it clicked, it made it that much better. It also has my boy Ice in it.
There is an Ice Cube song in there.
You got a little NWA, which is pretty great. And it's not just in there for a second; it's in there for a long time. A very important scene.
And I got to point out just an extra little kudo there, and I think you'll agree. Peele manages to inject humor in a very refreshing way into movies.
It doesn't feel like it's a joke moment.
Yeah, and the horror movies are especially notorious. They've fallen into a rut in the way they employ their humor to relieve tension. And don't get me wrong, what works, and that's why they keep on doing it. But Peele has found a unique way, a new and refreshing way to inject humor into the movies that, frankly, that's good, man. Yeah. I'm tired of the old shit.
And this, it just comes off as like natural stuff that is happening, and it's just kind of funny. But it's never like overdone. In fact, it's rarely done. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my boy Cube is in that, so it gets a solid 9.
So you go.
I do have to watch it again, and it might go up. But for now, gotta give it the Cube rating of 9.
And that says a lot on its own, that you're giving a relatively high score despite, I wouldn't say your issues, but your experience as it was. So yeah, guys, check this movie out if you haven't. And look, man, give Jordan Peele a fucking shot. I can't believe I have to say that. You know what I'm saying? That's not even the thing that should be said. This guy's earned his stripes already.
It seems like this freaking horror community is just retarded sometimes. If it's not,
it's bonkers.
If it's something that's liked or critically, does well and shit like that, and
they'll turn on it.
They'll turn on it, no matter what.
And it's pretty ridiculous because horror needs to evolve. Horror always survives, but the thing is, it needs to evolve to be consistently good.
If anything, this is like the first time. Well, not the first time, but it's rare for a horror movie to get critically, sucked off. Yeah. So I don't understand why people get so pissed off about that and turn on something like that.
I mean, the way the horror community is very insular, they like to think this is our thing.
Yeah, I guess.
But at the same time, this is also your thing. This is something that you can celebrate. This is something you should be proud of, that this guy went out there and did something that not only appeals to us and is creatively rich, but that also managed to get critics that usually poo all over this shit to go, wow, this is good. I can't ignore that this is good. Him and like I said, like Ari Aster, these are guys that are right now at the forefront going, this is a genre that shouldn't be shat upon. Yeah. Check this out, guys.
And yet people are turning on them.
Yeah, don't fucking shit. I realize we've been burned before, like when Eli Roth was a thing, this is the new guy, and then he just shat on us by giving us turd after turd after turd.
Like a machine gun ass.
Yeah, these guys are actually going out there and creating excellent material, and don't. Why are we turning on them? Don't. So, yeah, man, give this shit a fair shot. It's freaking awesome. Love this movie. Tell us what you think about it in the comments down below. Hit like, share, subscribe, those notification buttons, because we're out.